All right, let's have a little chat, shall we? So, I was looking at a movie that I've seen a million times, but sometimes I like to go back and rewatch old shit that I've watched before because maybe I might have missed a detail or something. Gay men, we're very detailed. We're very detail oriented. We like to, decode right down to the detail. That's what makes us good occultists. I was looking at the Guyana tragedy, the story of Jim Jones. Now, for those people who are younger who don't know who Jim Jones was, he was a nefarious cult leader of the 1960s and 70s. And his tenure ended in 1978 in November when he and 1,000 of his followers committed mass suicide. They were in the jungles of Guyana. Okay? They were in Guyana, South America. I went back and I was looking at that movie because everything that's going on with the, corona and all that stuff, it just reminded me it's something about this scenario that's going on now that kind of reminds me of what I was seeing in that movie. And it all ties into mind control. I would recommend anyone who's an occultist who is studying mind control and what it really looks like. If you really want to see a visual of what mind control looks like, you need to look at the movie The Guyana Tragedy, the story of Jim Jones. It's an old movie. The footage may be kind of choppy or whatever the case may be. It's right here on YouTube. But it really goes into detail of how he put his followers up under mind control. And there were a lot of subliminal messages, in that movie. For example, they said in the movie, which I already knew because the Spirit showed it to me, they said in the movie that the Guyana tragedy or the Guyana, whatever, was an experiment. And, when I had my old channel, I talked about that. I said that Guyana, the Guyana tragedy, that all of that was an experiment, and it was orchestrated by the CIA because Jim Jones was coordinating with the CIA when he went down to Guyana. And see, this is another fucked up thing that he did too. When he went down to Guyana, there is some evidence to suggest that he ran the indigenous Indians off of their land so he could set up this, so-called utopia. But my question is, that experiment, the Jonestown, the name of the town was Jonestown, Guyana. That's the town that they built for their cult. Because remember, he was the People's Temple. That was the name of the church, the People's Temple. But when they left Ukiah, California, they went to Guyana after he fearmongered them and mind controlled his flock, telling them that a nuclear war was coming and that they had to go to Guyana to escape the nuclear blast. That was one way that he got them to go into the jungle with him. The other way, and this is where he played on black people's um, subconscious mind, I guess you can say, or where he, used mind control against black people. He told them that, racism, white supremacy was going to rise up again and put them up under that institution and terrorization of racism, white supremacy. So that was how he got a lot of black people to follow him into the jungle of Guyana. Okay? But they said in the movie, and I missed this when I've seen this movie a dozen times since 1995, okay? Even when I was a teenager. And I missed the part where they said this is an experiment. Jonestown was an experiment. And that experiment was for something else that they wanted to implement. But here's another pattern that I noticed too. That happened in 1978, the late 70s. So that was up under the vibration of the number 7. 3 or 4 years into the future, we would have been going into, well, maybe about 3 years into the future. 3 is a powerful manifestation number. We know that. 3 is the magic number. 3 years into the future, 1981, that would have been a new beginning, because we would have been up under the vibration of the number 1, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we would. Yeah, absolutely. Because 1980, when you break it down to the single digit, it comes out as 9. 9 is the end, completion. Number 1 goes back to the beginning, new beginnings, new birth, all of that. So they were actually preparing for a new beginning of some sort. Towards the end of most cycles, when you're paying attention to the numbers, towards the end, like around the vibration of 7, 8, and 9, that is when things get the most tumultuous, because they're bringing in a new birth. In layman's terms, there's a new birth getting ready to take place. The birth of a new agenda, the birth of a new order globally, which some people may call a new world order or some shit like that. Another thing that I noticed too, correlating with this social distancing ritual that's going on right now. When I was looking at the Guyana tragedy tonight, I noticed that when the people came to Jonestown, they were separated from their family, their friends, their wives, and only Jim Jones determined who they could be married to. He determined who slept in what quarters. You feel what I'm saying? And to me, that is really, really similar to the social distancing ritual that's going on now. So we're seeing signs as far as 40 years back, or we're seeing symbology as much as 40 some years back of what was going to happen 40, 41 years into the future. 42 years into the future, because I'm almost 41. So that was back during the time right when I was born, or right before I was born, or around the time I was conceived. So when I look at the Guyana tragedy and I look at the patterns and the pathology of that, I see the social distancing that was going on in Jonestown. Certain people had to sleep in certain quarters. People did eat together and stuff like that. I mean, they did do that. But there was a separation there. There was a certain distancing there. And like I said, Jonestown was an experiment. They said it in the movie. They threw it in there. And Ron O'Neal, the actor, was the one who said it. His character said it. He played a colonel in Guyana or something like that. He was good looking back then too. But anyway, Jonestown was an experiment. And the social distancing that we're seeing now was part of that experiment back during that time. Maybe not as severe as it is now with this so-called pandemic. But social distancing was definitely a tactic being used in Jonestown. The experiment. I just wanted to come through right quick and just drop that. I haven't made a video in a while. Been doing my own fucking thing or whatever the case may be. Let me see. Do I have anything else to say about that? You can just see the mind control, basically. So I would recommend anyone who wants to see how mind control really works firsthand, I would definitely recommend the Guyana tragedy, the story of Jim Jones. And you will be able to see how mind control really works, at least in this aspect of it. You will get to see how he put his followers under his mind control using fear, using imagery. Another tactic that is used to implement mind control is the constant fear of nuclear war. And that has been going on since, the 1950s. And the most infamous picture to depict this is that picture of that big mushroom blowing up, exploding, that big mushroom explosion. You all know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And what a lot of black people don't know is, and what they know about us is that we respond to bright lights. Our subconscious mind responds to certain imagery like that. Anything that's like bright or bright yellow lights, our subconscious mind reacts and responds to that. See, a lot of black people don't know that about themselves. And they let that slip in Soul Food, the series, years ago. There was some episode where Terry was talking to an advertising lawyer, and he slipped up and said, black African Americans respond to bright lights and, large flashes. Our subconscious mind responds to that. That's how Jim Jones was able to put a lot of black people under mind control with the fear of nuclear war. I mean, it's a very interesting movie, and I think that any black occultist I think black occultists should watch that and look at it just to understand the mind control and everything, how he used it to his advantage and benefit. But anyway, that's all I really have to say about that. If I can think of anything else, I might come back and do a part two. But I just wanted to drop this video. Thank you.